Yeah.
I've seen all good people. No, I'm not going to sing the song. Hello, you good people. Friends. Lovers. Lovers of yes. Lovers of music. Lovers of all things rock and roll. Yes, I've got the rock and roll dog tags on. Welcome to 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir. I'm Robert Nasir.
I'm Amy Nasir.
Hi, Amy Nasir.
Hi there.
It is good to see you.
It's very nice to see you too.
It was good to see you last night, out and about around the town. Oh, I want to talk about that. But today is Sunday. Look at all these notes.
Whoa.
Let's see if I can make this quick. Today is Sunday, March 26, 2023, the 85th day of 2023. You've had 85 days to make this a good year. Are you having a good year yet? I know you are. If you need to make it even better, we want to help with that. We want to at least hear about it. Join us in the chat. I see Jupiter Menace is already in the chat. Says a show on yes. We will mention yes, but we're also going to mention Rush. I don't know how much time we'll spend with that. We'll see what we can do. Unsigned 32-bit individualist, hello there. Equal to reality is also in the chat. If you are listening, if you are watching, we want to hear from you on the Facebooks, on the YouTubers, wherever you are watching the show. Those of you catching it later on podcasts, you are just as awesome. Though you should join us live, because, God, I love the chat. Good stuff. Again, today is March 26th, Sunday, March 26th, Christmas. Christmas is only 274 days away. Start your shopping now. I try to get in that habit of buying Christmas presents all year like some people do. My success with that is, I think mixed would be an overstatement. I'll say limited. Limited sounds good.
Yeah.
219 days until Halloween, 14 days until Easter. But what you really want to know, 14 days until Easter, just 2 weeks. But it is 10 days until Amy's birthday.
Halloween?
Well, third Halloween. Since I know Valentine's Day is your second Halloween.
That's true. Now, unless you take St. Patrick's Day as Halloween, but I don't, that's not quite right. But
No, not really. I think your birthday is third Halloween. I think so. Anyway, April 5th. Make sure if you catch Amy online, wish her a happy birthday. I'm not going to say which birthday it is, but it rhymes with nifty.
Shush. Yeah, it's my third Halloween, and at some point, I will be looking like I'm from the crypt. Like
you are always going to look good. You're always going to look better than me, because I've got a couple years on you.
Yes, you do.
Just 2 or 3 or 4 or 9 or something like that. And on this date in history, real quick on this date in history, I don't know if I can do this quick, but I'll give it my best. Because on this date in history in 1804, March 26, you know today is March 26. On March 26, 1804, President Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, is presented with a mammoth loaf of bread. Okay, I've got to read the beginning of this, but I've linked to it in the show notes. If you go into the description for this YouTube video, or go into the description for this Facebook, wherever you're watching this, you will find all the links related to everything we're going to talk about. And one of them is a tale of giant cheese, a loaf of bread, and the First Amendment. Yes, today marks an interesting anniversary in U.S. history, the first known appearance of a huge loaf of bread at the White House.
Whoa.
As a tribute to an equally giant, politically charged cheese. A cheese wheel that symbolized the First Amendment. The bread was called the Mammoth Loaf, and it was made by the U.S. Navy for President Thomas Jefferson to be eaten at a party in the Senate on March 26, 1804. The bread was made to honor the earlier Mammoth cheese, a 1,200-pound cheese wheel sent to Jefferson 2 years earlier as a political statement about religious freedom. The Mammoth cheese was conceived by Elder John Leland, a Jefferson supporter, in the Federalist hotbed of Massachusetts. See, back then the parties were different. Jefferson belonged to the Democratic Republicans.
Oh.
A Democratic Republican Party, and the alternative to that were the Federalists. Leland enlisted the ladies of his Baptist congregation to make the giant cheese. He reportedly barred milk from Federalist cows from being used in the cheese-making process, using milk from 900 Republican cows.
They were all registered.
They had to check the cows' voting records, I guess. They used a large cider press to form the cheese. Leland also carefully ensured that, and this is cool, no slaves were used in manufacturing the cheese. Awesome. I'm just going to skip to the part I've got to read here. Real quick here on page 3. The symbolism of the Mammoth cheese was most poignant on New Year's Day in 1802 when Leland and his followers personally delivered the cheese to Jefferson at the White House. Jefferson thanked the man at a ceremony and paid them $200 for the cheese. I don't know what $200 in 1802 is, but I'm sure that's 1,200 pounds of cheese is a lot of cheese. The event may have inspired Jefferson to finish that important letter that very same day to a different group of New England Baptists. The president wrote to a group in Connecticut about the wall of separation in response to a letter he'd received from the group several days earlier in what became known as the Danbury Baptists letter.
Very nice.
Yes.
Very nice.
Jefferson stated, "I contemplate with sovereign reverence that act of the whole American people, which declared that their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state," unquote. Thomas Jefferson. And 2 years later, sure enough, he was delivered the Mammoth loaf of bread on this date in 1804. Follow that link, read that story. It really is a winner. Also on this date, the poliomyelitis vaccine, the polio vaccine, was announced by Jonas Salk, 1953.
Excellent.
And I know we have controversy over vaccines among our inner circle, our outer circle, all of you good people. But in 1952, the year before that announcement, an epidemic year for polio, there were 58,000 just new cases reported in the United States, and more than 3,000 died from the disease.
Oof.
It was in 1994 that polio was considered eradicated in the Americas, North and South.
That is fantastic.
That is fantastic.
Thank you, Jonas Salk.
Thank you, Mr. Salk. March 26th, British summertime begins. That means our good friends, you folks in the UK, I know Equal to Reality is in the chat. Whoever else is in the UK, I don't know if this applies to all of Europe or not, but your time's not screwed up anymore. I say that with complete U.S. prejudice. I do shows on the Ayn Rand Center UK, a couple of them. Well, it's a UK group. That means I have to follow their clock. So for those 2 weeks when the U.S. starts daylight savings time and y'all haven't done British summertime yet, man, my schedule's all wonky. It's just not right. It's just not fair.
No, it's not.
So anyway, today BST begins. Make sure y'all are doing the right time. Spring forward, fall back. Yes. March 26th. This is a complicated one because there's more than one holiday here. But March 26th is Wear a Hat Day. So I should do that. I should put out a hat.
Oh my gosh.
There we go.
You're wrong. Okay.
Oh, would you like a hat? All right. Look at that.
Aw.
I feel like we're so backwards. I don't know. Should we switch?
It's up to you.
That always looks good on you, but anything looks good on you. Here, let's try it. We'll be better color coordinated. I don't know. Tell us in the
Musical
chat. Is that better? I think that's better. Oh, God, you look good. Okay. And I just look like me, which is just fine. It is Wear a Hat Day. If you've got them, wear them. Put on a hat. I like hats. It was funny. I was on the HBL Meeting of the Minds. They're weekly, the Harry Binswanger list, Harry Binswanger letter, the forum that he runs. He does a weekly get-together on Zoom. And I was in one of the rooms, and somebody said, "Robert, you don't look right." "Oh, you're not wearing a hat." So apparently me wearing hats is a thing, which is good. I always intended it to be. Wear that hat. If you got a hat, a serious hat, a silly hat, whatever you got. It is the birth date of Robert Frost. Mm-hmm. The great Robert Frost was born on this date in 1874. Let's see. I think I have a copy of... Oh, where is it? Maybe I don't. I was going to read the great poem, and that has made all the difference. How on earth did I lose that? Well, I'll find that later. But a happy birthday to the late Robert Frost. Happy birthday to Leonard Nimoy. Well, we lost Leonard Nimoy in 2015. But it is, in honor of Leonard Nimoy, it is Live Long and Prosper Day.
Yes, well, before we get into Mr. Spock, Robert Frost, we actually have a home that he lived in the mid-1920s. the Robert Frost home from Ann Arbor, Michigan, in Greenfield Village.
In Greenfield Village,
at the
Dearborn,
Henry
Michigan.
Ford. So FYI, for any Robert Frost fans, you're welcome to go to the village and see the Robert Frost home.
And we have new listeners to the show this week. So for folks who don't know, Amy works with the Henry Ford, which is the company, the nonprofit. She works with she works with the late Henry Ford's peeps. If you don't know, the Henry Ford encompasses 4 different attractions in Dearborn, Michigan. Greenfield Village, the Historical Museum. The Henry Ford Museum of American Innovation, which is an enormous museum, amazing place. We were just there the other weekend with good friends, including the writer, Don Watkins, was with us. We had a great morning. As well as the Rouge Factory tour. You can actually tour a working automobile factory.
You're getting good at this.
Oh, sorry. I should have left that to you. You actually worked there.
No, it's okay.
But yes, one of Robert Frost's home. The Robert Frost home can be seen in Greenfield Village. Robert Frost, the man who wrote The Road Not Taken. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though, as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Look up some poems by Robert Frost. Celebrate his birthday in that way. And come to Greenfield Village and visit his home. Thank you. Thank you, man. We've done poetry readings on the show before. It's been too long. A happy birthday to Diana Ross. Diana Ross is still with us.
Wow.
Age 79, born 1944.
Oh, that is super sweet.
I imagine she still hears a symphony.
Yes.
It's Martin Short's birthday, and we've been having great fun with Only Murders in the Building. A fun show, although they haven't announced yet when season 3 is coming out. If they don't do it soon, I'll start holding a grudge.
Yeah.
But happy 73rd birthday, Martin. I love that he's 73 and he's still working, still got the show going on. I love it when older people are still rocking and rolling. Speaking of which, it's also Steven Tyler's birthday, for fans of Aerosmith. It's Larry Page's birthday. Now, this is not an older man. I can't believe Larry Page, who is the 7th richest person in the world, co-founder with Sergey Brin of Google, Google.com, and Alphabet, the parent company now, 50 years old. Let's see. As of February 2023, Page has an estimated net worth of $93 billion. Maybe he can help Elon Musk out.
Yeah, he could buy Twitter.
He could. And Elon Musk just announced he is personally evaluating Twitter at $20 billion. Well, he just bought it for $44 billion. So, yeah, that's a tough announcement to make.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe Larry Page could, bail him out. Give him a hand there. One more for fans of Keira Knightley. She is turning 38 today. Still young, so you guys who are looking to woo her, you still have a chance there. I have no idea what any of that means. And then this week, what happened this week? What are we listening to this week? Well, last night, oh my gosh, we listened to some of the best flamenco music.
Yes, we
and
did.
Saw some of the best flamenco dancing at the Redford Theater in Redford, Michigan.
Yes.
You folks in Southeast Michigan, I sat next to a gentleman. It was packed house.
Yeah.
Sat next to a gentleman who had never been there before, even though he lives in Troy, Michigan, a suburb not that far out. So, you've got to come when they have movies. This was a live performance of dancing and music, but when they do movies, they have a theater organ, and they play overtures, and they have intermissions and 50-50 raffles, and again, Southeast Michigan folks, Redford Theater, catch that. But flamenco, how was the flamenco, Amy?
The flamenco was Probably I've only seen a live performance of flamenco a long, long time ago. This completely blew that out of the water. So if, for those who do not know, flamenco is the dance of Spain. Oh, that's a southern Spain. Long, long history, very complex history, multicultural in the truest and best sense. And basically, you've got dancers, of course. You have a guitarist or two or three. You have a singer. A man or a woman, either way, but this time we had a woman singer who was also the leader of the group, and then you had a gentleman on percussion, sitting on a cajon, box drum. So there's just 5 of them up there, 2 dancers, 1 singer, guitarist, and a drummer. And it was really fantastic, and it was just enrapturing is what it was. And the flamenco dancers did something that I haven't seen a lot of ever, which is they were kind of playful with each other. So there's a dance called Sevillanas, and it's a partner dance kind of thing. And they really up the level on interacting with each other, on being playful with the audience, on improvising. Their styles were a little bit different from each other, and that was actually wonderful. That was absolutely amazing. And the other times they came up as solo dancers, which is great because there's a lot of improvisation in that, and you can see them just feeling the music. So I don't exactly know how to succinctly express flamenco dance and what it conveys, and the music, of course, what it conveys. But it's there's a particular Spanish word called duende, which kind of roughly translates as passion, but it's more than it's the passion that you feel, the emotion of intensity of emotion that you feel either after a death or after you fall in love. So it's the extreme range of emotion that they are conveying and expressing.
Yes.
And it is just absolutely amazing. Absolutely. There are times, and I'll say this again later too, I'm sure, but there are times when I feel like I am so proud to be part of humanity, to be another human living on Earth, amongst so many amazingly talented people who can feel and express the same emotions that I can feel and express, and in the intensity that I do. I see them doing it. It is it's a proud moment to be a human being.
And that is what we want to talk about.
Yes.
Because we went to this flamenco performance, and then, and it's the craziest thing, we immediately, when that wrapped up, went down to Orchestra Hall in Detroit, Michigan, and saw the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, and watched an extraordinary pianist, George Lee, perform Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto. And that was just the first half. Then there was Brahms' Symphony No. 4. An extraordinary evening of extraordinary musicians of 2 completely different kinds. This flamenco troupe and then the symphony orchestra. And we're going to talk about that because this week, Jean Moroney's, Jean Moroney, the wife of Harry Binswanger,
Yep.
And her mailing this week was on a fuller concept of happiness. And she's done a whole series of blog entries on happiness, including what you need to know about suffering to be happy, which goes along with a lot of what the flamenco troupe would have to say.
Yeah.
Accepting reality as the key to minimizing suffering. Serenity as a stepping stone to happiness. How many objectivists talk about putting suffering in context? How many objectivists talk about serenity? This is amazing stuff.
It's good.
So I am happy to announce that in May, and I know that's a ways away, but in May, I will be interviewing Jean Moroney Binswanger one more time. Well, not one more time, but once again.
Once again.
And I'm going to cover that topic of that particular series of 7 posts
I may join
on
you.
happiness.
We'll see.
Yes.
I may join you. We'll see.
It's in negotiations who exactly is going to be part of the interview process. But yeah, my guess is that the 2 of us will be interviewing Jean.
We'll see.
And Real quick, what else happened this week?
Before you get into that, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Just for people who are curious out there, it's not flamingo as in the pink bird. It's flamenco. So it's FLAMEN, like men, and then CO, flamenco. So everybody say with me at once. Flamenco. Okay.
Yes, getting that wrong is very funny to those of us who aren't part of the flamenco community. But I guess flamenco people take that stuff pretty seriously. Or so it seems. The shows that I did earlier this week are available. They're linked to in the post-it notes, in the show notes, youtube.com and facebook.com/Robert Nasir. You can take a look at there. Now, if you go to facebook.com/Robert Nasir, you will find public posts with a few of the photographs and for the flamenco troupe, some video clips as well of what those shows looked like, what Orchestra Hall looks like these days, what the Redford Theater looks like these days. Yes. They've got it looking mighty nice.
Mighty fine.
And I did do a show with James Valiant, Heroes in Love Part 2. Part 2 of what we did the week before.
Yep.
And I did an episode on Thursday of Life on Earth called On Danger. And that was specifically referencing, well, the launching point for that was referencing the Jordan Peterson quote that a good man is a dangerous man who has it under control, which I thought was an interesting idea and spent some time with that. But yes, this week, besides those two, Amy, you actually had a potluck dinner or potluck lunch at work with a bunch of Harry Potter fans.
So among my other many pursuits in life is I run a Harry Potter group at work at the Henry Ford. And so, yeah, we came together about, I don't know, give or take about 10 people or so. It was a good start because, you know, we're all working from home still, and it's difficult to get, you know, back to work, have everybody meet, have everybody be around each other. And it's just, it's kind of like we're on a struggle bus, actually, for the last few years. So it's kind of hard to get back into the swing of things. So I'm trying to get more people to get back into the office and do a potluck. We used to do this all the time, by the way. We've had such a great group of people, and it's just shout out to all my peeps at the Henry Ford who joined us, who have an appreciation for Harry Potter, and we do trivia and we talk about the different characters and motivations and plot points. It's a lot of fun.
And you may be wondering, yeah, but they're kind of all over the map. How does this all tie together? And I am ready. I am ready to tie it all together with this here pair of drumsticks. Now, you notice I have the rock and roll dog tags on. What's that got to do with all of this? Kirk Barbera, the great literature reviewing, poetry discussing, the literary objectivist, just did a... Sorry, I'm pausing because I'm not sure the best way to say this and be gentle about it, but the great Kirk Barbera just did a reaction video.
And it was an honest reaction.
An honest reaction.
Yes.
And he did a reaction video because he's not a rock and roller, or at least he's not a progressive rock and roller, so he was not familiar with the band Rush. And he's been hearing, you know, of course, as an objectivist, he's been hearing over the years how Rush is this great band, and the drummer, who also writes their lyrics, was inspired by Ayn Rand. And there was a discussion in Austin. Austin is where all the objectivists that aren't in Southeast Michigan are. Am I exaggerating a little bit? A little bit.
There are a lot of objectivists in Michigan.
There
really are.
And, well, that's what I mean. They're all either here or there.
Yeah.
I hear there's some in California, too, and a couple of other places. In fact, you know, you should do that. Share in the chat. Where are you at?
Where are you from? Where are you residing currently?
Right. You know, the old joke. A man goes to Harvard and says, "Excuse me, can you tell me where the library's at?" Stuck-up students say to the man, "Excuse me, at Harvard, we do not end a sentence with a preposition." And the man says, "Oh, okay, can you tell me where the library is at, asshat?" I changed that a little bit. Not much for profanity. But, Jupiter Menace is right down, he's just south of us.
What?
In Ohio, Jefferson, Alberta. We knew that. That's awesome. Petia's in Southern California. Knew that one too. That's super cool. I love because Petia posts her walks on videos and it's funny because people say, Robert, if you were going to move, where would you go? And I often say, well, if money wasn't an issue, I'd go to California. And they're like, what do you mean? All the objectivists are leaving California. Look, I get it. It's politics, it's finance, it's taxes, but it is still the most beautiful state in the country. So there you go. I know. Linda's going to say Wyoming, and she's right if you don't mind the winters. And Angie will say Montana, and she's right too if you don't mind being in Montana and away from everywhere else in the country. But yes, there are many beautiful places in the States. Keep posting where you're at. Drumsticks, Neil Peart, Kirk Barbera, reaction video. See, I'm a fan of Yes. It was mentioned right at the beginning of the chat, and rightly so, because this show takes its title from I've Seen All Good People by the band Yes. I'm a fan of progressive rock, and I can tell you, progressive rock doesn't always go down easy on a first listen.
No, it does not. I can attest to this.
There are Yes songs. My favorite band. There are Yes songs I have heard where the first time I heard them, I thought, okay, this one's terrible. And the second time I heard it, I thought, okay, this one's terrible. It's not getting any better. And it took several listens for me to even get what was happening. You Yes fans will know songs like The Gates of Delirium. In fact, most of the Relayer album.
I love the Relayer album.
I do too, but the first time I heard it, I thought, yeah, this is not for me. It's why are they doing these things? But speaking of Rachmaninoff, when we saw the second concerto last night, the first time I ever heard that, 15, 20 years ago, maybe longer, I didn't get it either. Like, why? I don't want to go on this journey. Well, it's because the first time I heard it, I didn't understand what I was hearing. I hadn't absorbed it. Yep. I needed more.
It takes time to acclimate yourself to the patterns and what it's saying to you.
So a spoiler alert, Kirk Barbera liked the song Tom Sawyer, but he didn't think the drumming was all that great. He thought it was good. But good is not a word you can use to describe Neil Peart's drumming. So point is, I'm thinking he just didn't get it. He just didn't get it. And Kirk is one of the good guys. I mean, high caliber good guy. So he was kind of setting himself up there. I know people who are Rush fans who cannot take criticism of that band, and I get it. I've learned to take musical criticism of things that I deeply love with a grain of salt.
What was he listening to?
He was listening to Tom Sawyer. He was listening to the version of Tom Sawyer that comes up first, which is the official video. They're in the studio playing along to they're playing along to the recording, but some of it may well have been from the original recording. Either way, you get to see what's actually happening there. That, I wonder about his hearing, because I know my high-frequency hearing isn't as good as it used to be, and I need really good speakers in order to hear, for example, cymbals and hi-hats and things like that, which is half of what you need to be able to hear to appreciate what Neil Peart is doing in that song. So, Dale says castanets. Yeah, I can't hear castanets unless they're very loud.
Yes. And Jupiter says Tales from Topographic Oceans was hard to swallow when I bought it at 15.
Yes, there you go. Tales from Topographic Oceans. And
it's funny because there was, at the time Emerson, Lake and Palmer came out with some sort of weird, crazy percussion, heavy instrumentation, and so you can kind of see that there's like similar influences there. But I would just. I absolutely love, most of that, actually, I should say. The third, I think it was the third part.
Of Tales?
Yes.
See, for me, the second and third sides, the middle two sides of Tales were a really hard swallow. I just didn't get it. And I still don't listen to those two sides as much as I do the first and the fourth.
Yeah.
So yes, good music can be a hard listen. And I've had people tell me, oh, no, Robert, you're wrong about that. The first time I heard The Gates of Delirium, I thought it was great, and I feel the exact same way about it now. I don't think those people really got it. Maybe they did. I'm skeptical, we'll put it that way. If it went down that easy, then you didn't get everything that was there. If they told me they liked it and they got it a lot more over time, that would be different. So, in any event, Kirk Barbera, good guy. Here's the thing. The flamenco troupe at the Redford Theater. Amazing talent. The guitar player was phenomenal.
The guitar player was award-winning.
Yeah.
He was award-winning flamenco guitarist. I mean, it was so good.
I would say his left hand was amazing. but his left hand didn't even compare to his right hand. And if you know flamenco, you understand.
He's got several picks on his little.
Some of them use finger picks. Some of them actually just grow out their nails or use artificial nails.
I think he was using finger picks.
Probably.
Yeah.
Either way, 3 different things going on at the same time. Melody picking with the index finger, flourishes with the other 3 fingers, and playing the bass with his thumb. Which is standard flamenco, but I don't know if I've ever seen anybody do it quite as good as this guy did it.
So amazing.
Good people. The woman singer who also led the troupe, announced all of the routines. Super charming, very talented singer, good people. Were they objectivists? They didn't say.
Probably not.
The Detroit Symphony Orchestra. Detroit Symphony Orchestra is amazing. Neme Yarve wasn't there last night. They had a guest conductor who was super charming and great at what he did.
Yes.
The guest pianist, Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto, amazing.
He was in his 30s. He's in his 30s.
It's just crazy. And I'll tell you, I know a lot of objectivists know the second and love it the way I do. My favorite versions of the second are usually very tight, very fast, highly disciplined. This guy wasn't any of that. He was extremely dynamic.
Yeah.
There were points at which he would slow down to a crawl, leave spaces you've never heard before, and then go crazy fast again. And he would get so much into the music, he would have his left foot flat on the floor, and he's coming up out of his seat, the piano bench, because he is so into what he's doing.
He's rocking back and forth. I mean, this guy...
He's loving it.
He's absolutely loving it. I mean, so I told my flamenco ladies this morning at practice, when I went this morning, this guy his name is George Lee. He's from Boston originally, and I told him he's like the flamenco of concert pianists. I mean, he was so emotional. He just put so much of his own emotion and style, and he just felt it, and it was so beautiful.
Now, the Detroit Symphony Orchestra broadcasts these live. I don't know if you can listen after the fact, but if you look up George Lee, it's L.I., and find performances of him at piano. Again, as a recording, I usually like a very, very disciplined version of that, but watching it live, sitting there watching somebody perform this, that was outstanding to see that dynamic a performance. The DSO, the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, are they objectivist?
No.
Don't know.
I would think that there's probably perhaps a good portion of people who have read something from Ayn Rand.
There may well be some objectivists in there.
Yeah.
Probably the flute player. She was awesome.
Yeah,
so she was probably an objectivist.
She had a golden flute.
She did.
It
was not silver. It was.
And you could tell that when she was playing, I was like looking over, and she was playing like she's kind of like moving with the music, and you could see the flute kind of go up and down.
Oh yeah. Well, I zoomed in. We had opera glasses, even though we had great seats. We're sitting in row P, but the seats are very close together. Row P was very close to the stage, but we brought opera glasses too, binoculars. And yeah, you're right. It was not gold. It was a gold-toned flute. It really stood out, and she did a beautiful job, both in the Rachmaninoff and especially in the Brahms. She really got to stand out. In fact, when they took their bows, she received an extra. The conductor had her stand up first. He did most of the individual sections, but she stood up first.
Yes, and you know what? After the Concerto No. 2, Rachmaninoff, George Lee. He had an encore, so everybody was standing up on their feet and clapping, and he came out. I don't know what piece it was. It was a little bit more modern, but it was nice. Actually, it wasn't bad.
It must have been something he loved, though, so I can cut him some slack for doing a modern piece.
Yeah, and but he was so good, and it was so amazing. I mean, it was stellar, and I made the mistake, and I will try not to ever make this mistake again. When I go into anything by Rachmaninoff, or even Tchaikovsky, or I don't know, definitely the Concerto No. 2, I have to bring more tissues. I had one napkin that I was working with.
It was a getting choked up night.
It was, my face was just soaked with tears because I was so overwhelmed with emotion. Because I know that Concerto No. 2 to me is my heartbeat. It's part of my body rhythm, at this point. I've heard it so many times, and I've just I get immersed inside of it, and it was truly extraordinary.
And the take-home point for me on the HBL, on the Meeting of the Minds, on this get-together led by Harry Binswanger and Gene Maroney, one of the questions that came up toward the end of the main discussion, but also they do breakout rooms afterwards so the discussion can continue. And one of the questions that came up is, why hasn't Objectivism, Ayn Rand's philosophy, penetrated further? Why haven't we gotten farther? And some people kind of seem to ask that with a pessimistic air. And it was an interesting question to me because there are so many good, talented, successful, and joyful people who unfortunately have not encountered these ideas yet, or even in some cases have encountered them and didn't get it, have not adopted these ideas, have not been particularly philosophical at all. And I think one of the answers to the question, why hasn't philosophy been more popular, why hasn't Objectivism in particular penetrated further, is that's not how philosophy works. That's not what philosophy is. It's the same as the answer to the question, well, what's the perfect argument to break through to somebody? How do you turn somebody into an objectivist? How do you turn somebody into an Ayn Rand admirer? And part of the answer, and this has been the answer for a few years now in objectivist circles, where this is kind of shaping a lot of the discussions, for example, at the OCONs, which is great, is you've got to meet people where they're at, and you've got to meet people at their values. But that implies that when you meet people, they've already got values. They've already got some answers. They've already got a life. They've already got things they love, things that they're doing. And for a lot of people, they're not doing very well because they don't have a consistent philosophy. Well, what does that mean? They don't have objectivism or existentialism or any other philosophy? No, it just means that the mishmash they've got, and for details on that, read Philosophy Who Needs It.
Yeah.
The mishmash that they've got isn't a very good one. Well, no mishmash can be good, right? Some people have better ideas than others. They might say they have better instincts, but it's not instincts. It's the way they were brought up and the decisions that they've made along the way and the psychology that they have built for themselves and their goals and their aspirations and their values. It's so easy to think, well, if you don't have an explicit philosophy, you don't have any values. If you don't know what morals are, you must not have any morals. That's not what philosophy is. That's not how philosophy works. I don't know that there's a person out there who couldn't be doing better, but with better philosophic ideas. But that doesn't mean that people who don't have explicit philosophic ideas don't have a philosophy, don't have values, don't have morals and ethics. And that's really the answer to the question, why haven't we gotten further? If not being an objectivist meant, well, then they must be the opposite of an objectivist. They must be anti-value. They must be anti-morality. They must hate life on Earth. Then yes, we would have gotten much further by now. That's not how it plays out. And the reason I want to talk about this is because that question comes up a lot. Why has an objectivist penetrated further? But also, it connects to my long-standing optimism about the future. It does mean it's going to be harder to get objectivism mainstream, but it also means that it's not that confusing or perplexing or much of a mystery why things are as good as they are, why we still have flamenco dance and swing dance and belly dance and 1,000 kinds of joyful dancing, and why we still have rock and roll bands like Rush and orchestras like the Detroit Symphony Orchestra and a million musicians out there, including amateurs like us, who love it and do it and make great things happen. And the same thing applies to production and technology and business and industry and finance. And there are so many disasters from people who get it wrong. And they need better ideas. Ultimately, they need these ideas. But there's so much good out there.
Oh my goodness. So one of the things when the concerto number 2 was playing last night, and I was sitting crying there, kind of a little bit self-conscious because I'm like, my tissue is getting a little moist. So I thought of, one of my very favorite quotes by Ayn Rand is, the sight of an achievement was the greatest gift a human being could offer to others. And this is the thing. I thought to myself, I got it. I had a breakthrough last night listening to Mammoth. And that quote points everybody, all of us, in the direction of irrational morality. The sight of an achievement was the greatest gift a human being could give to offer others. The point is that, and I've said this so many times on this show, but I'll say it over and over, is that altruism derails people's understanding or even approach to morality as such. It derails the connection these moral virtues have to man's nature, to your nature as a conceptual, cognitive, volitional creature. And it leads you into thinking that morality or moral value of a person is only such stupid bromides like, yeah, he'd give you the shirt off his back. Yeah. Well, you know what? Y'all can keep your shirts on. What I want is the sight of an achievement. What I want is the gift that I give to myself when I see beauty in the world, when I see exquisite flamenco dancers and performers and guitarists and exquisite concert pianists and violinists. And that's the gift that I give to myself, but they're giving it to me by the very nature of their own virtues, of all of the things that they have practiced, all of the actions, all of the habits that they chose for themselves, for their own person, to practice every day of their lives to get as good as they were, that we saw them last night. So that's how I am thinking of morality. It is not it's not about changing other people. It's not about railing against the left or the right. It's not about condemning other people as that's something that you're obligated to do. I think of the first duty of justice is to praise and defend the good. That's Leonard Peikoff's quote. And so when you see something of beauty, something of extraordinary talent and extraordinary intellect, such as we saw last night, think of that gift that you're being given right now, and that these are coming from people who may or may not know about Ayn Rand, but they need to know about this morality of rational egoism, and they need to know how to ground their morality, not in helping others blindly or aimlessly, but in enriching their own lives and bettering themselves and doing something that they can give just by being themselves, they're being an inspiration to other people.
Yes. Idea that came up this morning, the greatest revenge is living well. Greatest revenge is living well. It's true, but the emphasis is all wrong. It's funny, I wrote a while back on the social networks, I wrote this. It's amazing to me that I was surrounded by idiots in grade school. And I was often one of the idiots myself back in high school. And somehow, we idiots We grew up, and enough of us, not all of us, but enough of us were reasonable enough and capable enough and virtuous enough. We've replaced the previous generation. I graduated in 1981. Trust me, there wasn't a person in my high school who should have been trusted to operate a screwdriver, much less handle a knife in a restaurant. We have replaced the previous generation in business, in science, in entertainment, in leadership. And the civilized world has not only been maintained, but mankind has progressed and improved by nearly every objective measure, and in many ways by orders of magnitude. Seriously, most of us, we were dimwits, dopes, and not all that great morally either. And the world, looking at mortality and lifespan, or poverty and prosperity, or violence and safety, literacy and access to opportunity, and yes, technology, which is obvious, the availability of information, and leisure and entertainment and nearly everything else continues to progress. It boggles the mind, or at least it boggles my mind, because, granted, I was once an idiot. So the lesson I take away from that is, I don't worry about the current generation. They're going through hell. You talk about rates of depression, etc. We went through all that as kids. Maybe they've got it worse now. Maybe they're going to have it better. But they're going through the same stuff we all went through. And I see enough reasonable kids and enough virtuous kids to know they are at least as bright and as decent as we were. And probably more so. They and we are going to do just fine. So when my objectivist friends fall back on expressions like, the greatest revenge is living, and I like that, because that's where the focus should be, is living well. Linda Cordair in the chat knows. Living is more than just not dying. These ideas aren't here for you to fight evil, although that's a small part of what we've got to do. These ideas are here for you to live a life. So the greatest revenge is living well, but how do you know you're living well? And I will give you a clue.
What's this?
The greatest revenge is living well. How can you tell you're living well? When you don't care about the revenge anymore. You got bigger fish to fry than that. You're living a life.
Stick it to the man.
The greatest revenge is living well. It's true.
But I'm living well. Gosh darn it.
It's true, but it's not the important part.
It's absolutely right.
I love Ayn Rand's essay, What Can One Do? Mm-hmm. And she starts out the essay by saying, she often gets this question, and it's asked in a lot of different forms that have real problems, and she explains that. And she says, well, if you ask the question, what can one do, implying what can one do to solve all the philosophical problems of the world, the answer is there's nothing you can do. There's nothing one can do. What can one do? How can one live a rational life in an irrational society? She questions the premise. And then she goes on to say, okay, well, here is what one person can do. So in the how can one live a rational life in an irrational society, she says, well, among other things, the one thing that you should always do is be willing to pronounce moral judgment. Mm-hmm. When you encounter immorality, explicit irrationality, you should be willing to speak out. And sometimes all that requires is saying, I don't agree, and walking away. It doesn't necessarily require a fight.
Yeah.
Read that whole essay in The Virtue of Selfishness.
But I would say this, and this may veer from what Ayn Rand had written, but my own observation, honestly, every time this comes up, I'm like, this is true, this keeps being true, is that the best way to spread rational egoism, the morality and objectivism, the 7 virtues, the importance of being honest, for instance, importance of having integrity, and all of it, is to approach it as applied philosophy, to ask yourself if you are living it, to ask yourself if it's being good to you, if it's working for you, and and to make great things in life, make good on your life, be happy, flourish, and other people will see your style of your soul. Other people will see you, your spirit, your who you are as a person, your personality, your sense of life, all of that. They'll see it. And sometimes I interact with people and I think to myself, you know what? I'm putting a pep in that person's step. And I have some people who I work with in life, I won't say who need that, who need some spiritual fuel, or who need a positive vision of life, a positive approach to life. And when they see me, they know that they see that in me, and I see that they see that in me. And I think to myself, you know what? In that context, I can talk about Ayn Rand all that I want. I can tell them maybe perhaps how they might be wrong about something. But what's really going to be convincing to them is seeing me and seeing how I live my life and seeing how important my life is to me and how much I enjoy it. So again, it goes back to inspiring people to rethink their morality, to rethink their approach to life, to rethink their pessimism or their malevolence. And so it's not just the words, but it's the style. It's not just the content, but it's the style. It's how you approach life. And think about, am I approaching life in the way that I want to approach it?
Sorry, I've been missing some of the chat. And Jim
sure
Ashley says, I was a bigger idiot than you, Robert. Jim, if you had been there, you might not be saying that. There's some great stuff in the chat. Richard Cammon's right. It is a hell of a time to be alive. And Jason Adams says, so we are not living well if we crush our enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentations of their women.
Thank
of course,
you,
great,
Conan.
great movie quote there. And I love that. We should destroy our enemies. We should fight evil. The only thing standing in the way of that, or rather, the only thing I want to advise people of, evil is not as common as we think it is. None of the people in that flamenco troupe were evil. I may find out I was wrong. I may find out one of them was cheating on his wife, some kind of criminal, doing some terrible thing. Best I can tell, and all of the evidence that I've got is these were great people, living great lives and having a great time.
Yes.
The people in the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, good people. Nobody develops that level of ability, no matter how much talent they started out with, without being enormously disciplined and rational and good people. Maybe some of them in some other ways are terrible. I'm sure there could be some of that. All of the evidence is good people. The people who serve me at restaurants, the people who wait on me at coffee shops, the people who ring me up at grocery stores, the people I interact with, the people you interact with 97% of the time. Good, decent people. Now, justice matters. There's bad stuff out there. We really do need to crush our enemies and see them driven before us, except for the driven before us part. I don't care about that. I want to acquaint you with the rear view mirror. Justice matters. Absolutely.
Rear mirror.
But in that essay, what can one do? What can one do? Ayn Rand says, well, you can't change the world. You can't fix everything. The way the question is asked, there's no answer. Now, here are the things you can do. And that is a great essay on all the things you can do. But we jump to that. We say, oh, good, that was what I was waiting for, is the what can I do? And it's great. But I see people forget that first part all the time about, well, asked that way, there's nothing you can do. And they still say, well, what's that one argument I can do that will make an objectivist out of everybody that I meet? What's that one thing I can do, that one letter I can send my senator that's going to convince him to become for laissez-faire capitalism? What's that one thing I can do to fix the problems in Ukraine and Russia? What can I... Well, Ayn Rand answered that part too, and the answer is that's not how anything gets done. You can't do that. It's not rational to expect that of yourselves.
And that's why I think, in my opinion, or my speculation is, Ayn Rand was a novelist first. She wanted to show what her vision of what the ideal man is, ideal woman is. And she wanted to give you that inspiration to motivate you to check your premises.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I've had people say, when is objectivism going to save the world? And I've said it's already saved the world. If it wasn't for the impact of Ayn Rand on the culture, not turning people into objectivists, but even her principled arguments in favor of capitalism and against the draft. You can study the impact that she had on finally ending selective service and 1,000 other ways in which she impacted the culture. The world would be much worse off than it is. But we're not all objectivists. Objectivism has not penetrated the culture explicitly, and therefore Ayn Rand's philosophy hasn't won the day. That wasn't her goal.
Right.
She was a fiction writer. She wanted to write a story of the ideal man. In fact, she wrote more than one of them. She wanted to be a writer. Now, her philosophy was amazing. The way she lived her life was amazing. The ideas by which she lived her life were amazing. But they were first and foremost for living her life. And that's exactly what we should be using those ideas for. Mm-hmm. And once you understand that, it's much easier than when you meet people. Yeah, they're not objectivists. I wanted to say they're not yet objectivists. Some of them never will be. But just richly good and decent people who will fill your life with values if you are open to that. When you meet the musicians, when you meet the dancers, when you meet just the decent people out there, you don't want to have that pang in your heart of, oh, if they were only objectivists. I have turned people onto these ideas, and I will continue to fight for them. But that's not the point, at least not the point that I'm making today. And the real enemies, the actual enemies, I will tell you, I told you, I want to teach you about the rearview mirror. And I've talked about this before. The biggest punishment you can inflict on the ne'er-do-wells in your life, the biggest punishment you can, to anybody who does you wrong, who mistreats you, this doesn't always apply. There's sometimes you've got to pull out the gun, metaphorically speaking. But the biggest punishment I have enacted on people who have done me wrong in my life is I put them in the rearview mirror and I watched them fade into the distance and disappear, and I just don't care about them anymore. And you think, well, they should have been punished. They did really bad things to you. There is no greater punishment than you don't get Robert Nasir in your life anymore.
It's true.
And I want you to feel that about everybody, not that you beat up, although maybe you have to do that if there's an active threat, or that you inflict some massive justice on. And you get to hear the lamentations of their women. No, I want you to feel, as you watch them fade into your rearview mirror, metaphorically speaking, as they no longer matter to you.
Yes.
Again, the best revenge is living well. But you know you're living well when you don't even care about the revenge, and you're living too well. You're enjoying your life. You're following your passions. You're doing what you wanted to do with this all too finite time that we have during our lives on Earth.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Damn straight.
Shake your hand, sir.
So, thank you for joining us. This has been 5 minutes. We went a little over, didn't we? A little more than 5 minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir. I want to wrap up. I don't have any homework for this week, or rather I have a lot of homework for this week, which is why I don't have a homework assignment to share with you. I'm making some changes in Studio de la Nasir. My only post-it note for the week says, Time Stand Still. This is the title of my favorite Rush song. It's not the greatest Rush song. The greatest Rush song would have to be something more epic, La Via Strangliato or Xanadu. But this is my favorite Rush song, is Time Stand Still. If you've never heard the song before, don't watch the official video. Because the official video, it's cute and it's silly, but it's not a cute and silly song. It's a crucially important song, so watch the version that just shows you the album cover. My favorite Rush song, and it reminds me, Time Stands Still. Well, of course, time doesn't stand still. What you really do is you appreciate the moment that you're in. You make this time matter. You watch these 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 hours, whatever time frame you're in, doing what you're doing, you watch it matter. You make time matter. So that's my Post-it note to myself. I'll be putting that up, looking at it over the course of the week. My Post-it notes are always for reminding myself of things I already know but need to be bearing more in mind. Feel free to join me on that. If that's not doing it for you, write something on a Post-it note, just something that you know you've needed to think about more, remember more, or work on. My advice to you, I've actually mailed Post-it notes to people who told me, I don't have any Post-it notes, and or I can't afford to buy a bunch of Post-it notes right now. I think everybody should have a stack of Post-it notes and a couple good permanent markers. And with that said, thank you for joining us. As always, we encourage and welcome you in the chat or in the 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir, 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir Facebook group to let us know, what do you think we should be talking about? What do you think we should be doing more of? Should do more shows that are less than half an hour long. I get that too, and we're working on it, but not today. And if you go to robertnasir.com, you will find a direct link to our latest video. In fact, I've just started adding a direct link to my Thursday video as well. But also, you will find links at robertnasir.com to my super secret email address, where you can spam me. I mean, you can email me anything you want to email to me. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook, so I sometimes get messages that way. That's cool as well. But also at robertnasir.com, you will find links to Patreon and PayPal for monthly or one-time contributions. I want to throw a huge shout out to those of you who contribute to the show, who help make all of this happen, who keep the lights on at Casa de la Nasir. Greatly appreciated. You are the best. This is the best audience in podcasting. It really is. Yarn Brook has got a great audience, but doesn't touch this.
That's right.
We do need to make the audience bigger. So before you go, if you're on YouTube, please like the show. If you thought it was fun, or one of your friends or followers might find it interesting, share the show. Put that out there as well. And if you're not subscribed, please click the subscribe button. Those of you on Facebook can do the same thing with sharing shows on the Book of Face. If you do, we will greatly appreciate that. Oh, I've got my rock and roll dog tags on that are making noise. Huge shout out to Kirk Barbera. It takes some real stones to do a reaction video to the Rush song Tom Sawyer. And
well, he put himself out there. He was vulnerable. He was courageous. He was honest. And
don't ever do that again. No, I mean, just kidding. But I don't envy you the response, the reaction videos you're going to get to your reaction video. We'll see. It could be fun. And either way, he needs to listen to that song a few more times to appreciate what is happening. I mean, just the footwork on that. And part of what's great about... No, I'm not going to do it. We'll do a whole episode on Neil Peart and progressive rock.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to put this out there for only $100 if you want to contribute to us. We will do a reaction video of any song of your choosing.
That's right.
And we're musicians, so, Yaron Brook, now just saying, is not a musician.
That's true. Yaron does do reviews of music, and he charges like $250 or $100, whatever it is, to do a review of a piece of music. And that's cool. And I love that he does it. And that's great. But yes, we are willing to do that for much less.
Yes.
RobertNasir.com, you'll see my PayPal address. Send us $100 and I will review any piece of music. And we're actually musicians, so we might actually be able to say, I love this part because... Yes,
we can give reasons, and we can actually talk in terms of music and...
that transition from B flat to C major was very cleverly, expertly done. And okay, anyway, I'm in that kind of mood where I could go all night with this. Thank you for joining us. You're the best audience in podcasting, the best audience in video, and that is why we wish you every success that you so richly deserve. How do we know you deserve it? Because only decent people would listen for this long to this kind of show. The other people are like, oh, to hell with them. Thank you. Every success to you. And as always, and with good reason, this is not, unconditional, even though I've argued for that. As always, we wish you conditional, well considered, with all sorts of good reasons, love.